Hey friends, welcome back. I am Jason, and it is a frosty morning. It's about 15 degrees, I think, give or take. It's a little bit nippy. And the colder the weather, the more extreme the conditions, the more we are reminded of how important our equipment is, from the clothes that we wear to the gear that we carry in our pockets and in our packs and in our vehicles. Having quality equipment that you can trust your life to is going to be crucial. Now, what I'm doing in this video is I've tried to compile a short list of supplies, essential gear that I think that everyone should have. Do I think that you should rush out right now or click on all the links in this video and buy all the things right now? Absolutely not. I don't think that you need to do that. You can if you choose, if you have the budget to do so, but I don't think that's required. You can accumulate these supplies, this equipment over time. You can start with some budget items perhaps, and then you can slowly improve your gear and decide what works for you, what you need. Double wool hoodies. That's where it's at right there. So in no particular order, I'm just gonna be going through a checklist of equipment, gear, supplies that I would want in my kit if I was heading off, or just in general, supplies that I'd like to keep in my vehicle so at a moment's notice, I can be ready for action. I'm gonna do my best to have links to every single thing that I'm mentioning in this video in my Amazon store. So if you click on the link to my Amazon store that is in the video description, and I'll also include it in the comment section, it'll take you to my store and it'll have all these things supplied there, and you can peruse, take a look at all these things. You don't need to buy them from me. I do appreciate the support to the channel, obviously, but you can buy them from anywhere, anyone that you want, and I highly suggest that if someone has this equipment already, try it out first before you buy it, so you know that it's something you want and you're not wasting your money. So first thing on the list is food. It is hard to argue that the Mountain House meals are just about the best out there. They taste the best. They're good quality. They have sufficient amount of calories in them. They're so easy to prepare. You can buy 6 meals for about 64 bucks, so a little over 10 bucks a pop. It sounds a little expensive, but 10 bucks for a meal is really not that bad, and it's just, like I said, so easy. You pour in boiling water, you stir it up, you zip it up, and you let it cook for about 10 minutes if you're that patient. If you're patient enough to wait 10 minutes, I'm usually not. My Mountain House meals are usually a bit crunchy, but they're delightful. They weigh almost nothing. They're super, super lightweight and really, really easy. No dishes and stuff afterwards to worry about. So Mountain House meals, really can't argue with that. Those things are great. Got to have a canteen cup. A canteen cup is an essential piece of kit that I try to go nowhere without. I've got one here somewhere. Some sort of metal canteen cup. This is not my favorite one. I prefer a Stanley cook pot, but because it has a lid. I like the Stanley cook pot because it has a lid and it's got a handle that closes on top of the lid and keeps everything contained. So I really like that. That's my preference. But you could boil water in there to purify it if needed. You can make yourself a hot brew. And in the wintertime like this, and there's nothing better than having even if it's just plain water, a hot beverage to warm your body from the inside out is really hard to beat. Like this last weekend, for example, we were camping out in wintertime conditions. It was sleeting rain, freezing rain, camping out, and I was on fire watch. We were rotating. And while I was on fire watch, I was just having my cup of hot tea, just pine needle tea, just staying warm, and I was sipping on it the entire couple hours that I was on watch. Really nice. It's hard to beat it. In your kit, I highly suggest that you have a spoon. Yes, you could craft a spoon, you could craft chopsticks and all that kind of stuff, but if you have a spoon already ready to go, preferably one with a little bit longer handle is helpful, but it takes up a little bit more space. Any kind of spoon that you could either buy or just take out of your kitchen drawer is fine. A titanium version weighs nothing, which is really nice and handy to have. A spork perhaps is always nice as well. Your choice on that, but a spoon is a pretty handy piece of kit. If you're only going to carry one utensil, a spoon is a pretty good choice. By far, my preferred source of flame in a wintertime condition, or any type of condition, is going to be a Bic lighter. The Bic lighter is reliable. It always works. They are super handy. They last a long time. Just having a ready-to-go ignition source, a flame, an open flame, is crucial. Ferro rods are fantastic, and I think they're an excellent backup, but I would always use my Bic lighter before the ferro rod just because it's so much faster, so much easier, and you can skip the tender phase of fire prep and just jump right into kindling if you have an open flame. small enough kindling, obviously. So for that, a Bic lighter, they're really inexpensive, a little over $1 a piece. Sometimes you can find deals where they're even less than that. But ferro rods, like I said, great backup, and I recommend the big ones. You get a big jumbo 1/2 inch by 5-6 inch ferro rod. Those things are going to be really easy to use with cold, numb hands like I have right now. It can be difficult to manipulate a small little ferro rod. And so that's why I would want a big chunky one that really you drive a whole bunch of huge sparks off of. And if it's an emergency situation, if something happens to your lighter's not working for some reason, big, huge sparks off a giant chunky ferro rod is going to be really, really helpful. Tinder. Tinder is really nice to have to bring with you, whether it's some sort of natural tinder that you've crafted ahead of time, whether it's Vaseline and cotton balls, or some sort of man-made tinder, like quick tinder tabs, something like that is really nice to have because it's not always easy to get tinder. Sometimes when the weather's dry and the sun is shining and the breeze has been blowing, you can find tinder everywhere and anywhere. Sometimes it's been raining, it's been freezing rain, and tinder is much, much less likely to be found, harder to come across, harder to create, and sometimes you just don't have the time. Maybe you're injured. And just having those tinder tabs ready to go that you can light up and save the fuel in your lighter. Light up one of those tinder tabs, 2 of those tinder tabs, put that underneath your kindling, and just let it do its work, and you've got yourself a fire. Tinder tabs, really, really helpful. Now let's talk about water. Water is so important. In wintertime conditions, when the air is dry, you can get really dehydrated. You may not feel like drinking water, but it's still really important that you're staying properly hydrated so your body can do the functions that it needs to do without cramping up, without getting hypothermia. Because if you're dehydrated, you're more likely to succumb to hypothermia. So staying hydrated is going to be crucial. And there's lots of ways to go about this. Everything from water tablets, water purification tablets that are fairly inexpensive, really inexpensive, and they get the job done, but generally speaking, they make the water taste kind of funny, but they're small, compact, really easy to use, and I like using them for that reason. Water filtration, everything from Grail water filters. Grail is probably my preference just because it's a water bottle and a water filter, so I like it for that. A Salyer Mini, really inexpensive, about $20. Salyer Minis are great. You can just screw them onto basically any water bottle that has like kind of the standard threads, like a 2-liter water bottle would have standard threads. Those are great. Katadyn Be Free, those are really nice. You just squeeze the water, the dirty water through that filter, and it's really fast. So lots of options there. Those are going to all be in that Amazon link. So take a look and kind of do some research and decide which one you like the best. Salyer Mini, I have a lot of faith in. I've used them a bunch of times, and those Grails, a lot of faith in those as well. And the Katadyn Be Frees are really good. Shelter. Wintertime conditions, anytime conditions, shelter is going to be really, really important. Get yourself out of the elements and protect yourself from those elements, whether it be rain, wind, snow, whatever. The sun, perhaps, if you're out in a desert and you're getting scorched. Having some way to protect yourself, having some sort of shelter is going to be crucial. I love a poncho. I'm a poncho guy. It's small. It's compact. I can wear it. It's so fantastic. I can rig it up into some sort of shelter really fast. In about 60 seconds or less, I can have my poncho out of my pack and rigged up into a plow point shelter, and that's hard to beat. It's for a one-man shelter, it's really hard to beat that. I really like the versatility of a poncho. Now, that may not be your preference. You might want a bigger tarp. You might want a tent. You might want something else. And that's totally okay. That's up for you to decide. But I've had really, really good luck with the poncho when it's specifically just me camping by myself. Or even if I've got a group of people and everybody has their own one-man shelters, I like a poncho. Now, rigging up shelters, if you're not using a tent, you're going to need some sort of cordage probably. You might need to make a ridge line. You might need some bank line or paracord. It is hard to beat paracord. There's a lot of different cordages out there. But man, the paracord has stood the test of time. It is versatile. It is super strong. It's easy to tie and untie knots with it. It's a great cordage. So just get yourself a big roll of paracord and it'll last you a long time. Cut it up. What I usually do is if I buy a big roll of paracord, which is going to be unwieldy and unmanageable, what I'll do is I'll just cut it up into smaller pieces that I can take with me. And usually it's about 25 feet, hanks of 25 feet. I'll do 5 pulls. Arm length pulls like this, 5 of them, and then I'll cut it and I'll hang that up and I'll put it in my pack or in my pocket, and I've got 25 feet of cordage there. You can do smaller sections, which are handy sometimes for different applications, but 25 feet seems to be about right for a lot of different reasons, and you can always cut up those sections a little bit further if needed. Bank line, also really great. Inexpensive, quite strong. It holds knots really, really well, and it's pretty much like a disposable type cordage that's just easy to work with. Something to lay on, specifically in the wintertime, is going to be so important. In the summertime, I like a hammock, so I'm laying on the hammock. It's keeping me off of the ground. So all times of year, it's really helpful to carry something with you that keeps you off of the ground. In the wintertime, I prefer to sleep on the ground, but on a sleep pad of sorts, or some sort of bed that I have made. Now, making a good quality mattress, a bed out of natural materials in your environment can take a long time. Depending on where you are, depending on the natural resources available to you, it can take a really long time. So why not just carry something to lay on? An accordion style sleep pad, a foam sleep pad, is gonna be so valuable. Having a dry, warm thing to lay on is so nice. Or you keep it folded up and you just sit on it by the fire. Whatever. As long as you've got something to separate you from that cold earth, man, it's an invaluable piece of kit that you should definitely always carry with you. Some sort of inflatable pad is great, but just the cheaper fold-up foam pads are excellent and worth their weight in gold. Whew. Man, it's cold out here. That wind, I think it's colder than 15 degrees. It feels like it's about 10 degrees, maybe colder. We might be in single digits today. It is nippy. One of everybody's favorite topics is going to be cutting tools. Axes and knives and saws, multi-tools, all of these things are really important. It is one of man's first tools that we ever crafted from a sharp rock, and it has been with us ever since, because it is so valuable to have something just to cut through material, cut cordages, cut through trees and barks and craft and be able to make the things that we need out of our natural environment. Having a cutting tool, like a modern steel blade of sorts, is just so valuable, and you can spend everything from about $10 on a cheap Mora knife that gets the job done, all the way up to thousands of dollars on the most expensive unobtainium steel blade that's not required for sure. So like I said, you can spend just a few bucks on a knife that will get the job done, but maybe not last you forever. It's not a lifetime tool. Or you could spend a little bit more money on something that will last you the rest of your life, and you'd be happy to pass on to the grandkids one day. I work closely with Bear Forest Knives, and I've got a few knife designs through Bear Forest Knives, but he has all kinds of different ones, and they're really high quality, and I highly recommend Bear Forest Knives. The On3 EDC is the one that I carry every single day. It's buried under a few layers at the moment. That's the one I've been carrying every single day for years now, and it has never let me down. It always gets the job done. So, but you make your choice on that one. Mora knives, hard to beat for the money, like I said. You won't regret that. Axes. Collins axes are cheap, inexpensive axes, and they generally get the job done. They don't hold an edge quite as long as some of your better steels, but they generally get the job done. Some of your better tools from Council Tool are really good axes, good high quality chopping tools. If you can find some sort of a vintage axe head and rehandle it yourself, or have somebody rehandle it for you, you won't regret that, because the older axes, man, they just seem to... There's something about the classic axes, the vintage blades that really, I don't know, just I enjoy using them very much. So saws, the Silky saws are fantastic. The Silky Big Boy is a firewood getting machine. That thing gets it done. If you've never used one of the Silky Big Boys, highly recommend it. If you need firewood, they can get it done in a hurry. Multi-tools, I love the Leatherman Wave Plus. The Leatherman Wave has probably been my go-to for a long time. If you're on a more of a budget, the Leatherman Rev is a more expensive. I think they're around $40, something like that. And they've got the essential tools in them. A Leatherman, just having a pair of pliers is really handy, and that backup blade and the saws and the files and stuff that come on the Leathermans are really handy. A cheap bandana, some sort of cotton cloth. You could buy some sort of big, cheap, 100% cotton sheet and then cut it up into usable sections, but just having something like a bandana is really handy for so many things. Everything from a pre-filter for before you put it into your water filter to get some of the bigger chunks of crud out of them if your water source is pretty marginal, to Band-Aids. You cut your finger, you take a little bit of that bandana, you cut a section off, and then you use some tape that we'll get to in a second. Gorilla Tape, which I highly suggest. Use that as an improvised bandage. It holds better than any kind of Band-Aid that you're gonna buy off the shelf, the Band-Aid brand. Just a bandana with a little bit of tape around it, and you can fix almost all of the injuries most of the injuries that you're going to get in a wild place, which are typically just cuts and abrasions and stuff. So a bandana, really, really handy, even if you're just tying it around your neck to keep yourself a little bit warmer, or pull it up over your face and you wet it down to keep some dust particles out of your face. That's great. To keep the sun off the back of your neck. Bandana is hard to beat, like I said before, with like that sleep pad. It's worth its weight in gold. Tape, Gorilla Tape, strong stuff. I've patched holes in my tarps with Gorilla Tape. I've patched holes in my puffy down jacket before with Gorilla Tape. It's been on there for years. I have not replaced those little tabs of tape. It's been on there for 2-3 years maybe, and it's still going strong. Gorilla Tape is where it is at. It's a little expensive for a roll of tape, but one roll lasts you quite a long time, depending on what you're using it for, obviously. It's also a flame extender. You can light it up with your lighter and then use that as your tinder to get your wet marginal kindling lit up. Duct tape, specifically Gorilla brand tape, is really good stuff. Now, as far as first aid goes, like I said, you can use your bandana for a bandage, which is going to fix almost all the problems that you're going to see in a wild place. I mean, cuts happen all the time. I've cut myself so many times, I can't even count how many times I've cut my hands and whatever. And generally speaking, some sort of small bandage is going to get the job done. However, there is one situation that can only be solved with a very specific tool, and that is a massive hemorrhage from one of your extremities, so a leg or an arm, and you've got a massive bleed where you've hit an artery and you're going to bleed out really, really fast. And a tourniquet, whether it be improvised from that bandana perhaps, or a cat tourniquet that I highly recommend, that is what you need to stop that bleeding. You need to stop it really, really fast. The likelihood of this happening, that you might need one of these, slim. However, the number one cause of preventable death is a massive hemorrhage to one of your extremities. So there's a lot of things that could happen in a wild place that I can't stop. I can't control. If you smack your head extremely hard on a rock and I'm 20 miles from nowhere, I may not be able to save your life. However, if you are cut and bleeding profusely and I've got that tourniquet on me, I can save your life, potentially. And that is huge. That is a big, big deal. And, they're not that big. They're not that heavy. They're not that expensive. Why not carry one? That's all I'm saying there. Flashlights. A flashlight is a hugely important tool, and a lot of your primitive bushcrafty people don't even mention the flashlight, but the flashlight is a game changer. Just to be able to see where you're going in the darkness, and if you're out at camp and you've got this little fire going, fantastic, but then your bubble of light is so small. The darkness is everywhere, and you can't go anywhere without tripping over yourself. So having just a little flashlight, a reliable flashlight, I like Streamlight flashlights. Those are really good. I've had really good luck with them. Olight makes some good ones as well. I've been carrying an Olight for a long time. Just a reliable brand flashlight is what I would recommend. Doesn't have to be a big one. Doesn't have to be super crazy bright. Just something that takes a single AAA or AA will get the job done. Back on the subject of shelter for a second. I have a hard time not carrying a bivy bag. A bivy bag is amazing. The waterproof capability of a bivy bag is so great. Crawl inside of one of those things, and it doesn't matter what's going on in the world around you because you're just in this cocoon of warmth and comfort. Whether it's wintertime conditions and you've got a sleeping bag and that sleeping bag is inside of the bivy bag, so if you've got 2 layers of shelter there and then a tarp or some other shelter over top of you, your sleep pad underneath you, it is hard to beat that. Invest your money in a good sleeping bag. I highly recommend Down because of its capability of being packed down really, really small, and it's lightweight. And it's R value. Its insulating ability is just so much higher. So Down is amazing. I like Big Agnes sleeping bags. Really like those a lot. I've had really good luck with them. Inside of a bivy bag, on top of a sleep pad, underneath a tarp. Who cares what's going on in the world around you? It could be freezing, snowing, sleeting, whatever. I don't care because I've got a really good shelter. So a tarp over top of me or a poncho, which is my preference. A bivy bag that's keeping the elements off, keeping the wind and the rain off of you, keeping you dry. A sleeping bag that's going to insulate you, and then a sleep pad underneath you. If you've got those things right there, man, life is good. And now to wrap up our kit list here, not that that's all inclusive. There's a whole lot of other things out there that you can invest your money in, but that's going to be the essentials. If you've got that stuff in your pack, you're going to be good to go. Now, the last thing, like I just said, the last thing that's going to be important is a way to carry all this stuff. Having a good quality pack that you can carry all of the weight that you're going to carry along. All the stuff that I listed there is not heavy. I mean, you could get your pack under 20 pounds. All that stuff that I just listed could be under 20 pounds. For sure, including the pack itself. But having a good quality pack from Mystery Ranch or Hill People Gear or one of the other really quality pack producers is what I would recommend. But you won't regret it. A comfortable pack with really good straps and a waist belt that's going to help support that load on your hips, the hip belt, that is going to be really, really helpful, and you won't regret spending a few extra bucks on a good quality pack. How much gear you carry is going to determine how much you are suffering. You might carry a whole lot of gear, a lot of heavy equipment, and you're going to suffer on the way to your destination. You might want to carry very little equipment and run really light and be light and fast and agile. But then you're going to suffer a little bit when you get to your location because of your lack of equipment and perhaps more shelter elements. It's a balance act that we always are trying to juggle here, and that has been the story throughout time. Travel light, and you might freeze at night. Travel heavy, and you're going to suffer and sweat and be miserable, and you're going to get more blisters and ankle pain and foot pain on the way to your destination. So it's a balancing act that we need to try to juggle a little bit and try to work through. And only experience can determine what you need personally. The ultralight backpacking gear is usually very, very expensive, and generally speaking, not very durable. Your military surplus type stuff is generally speaking not very expensive, but extremely durable and pretty heavy. So somewhere a balance. Like I like the military sleep system bivy bag, the Gore-Tex bivy bag. It's bigger and it's heavier, it's bulkier, but holy crap is it durable, and it's lasted me a long, long time. So for that reason, I think it's valuable. But you may not think so. You might need a more ultralight SOL breathable bivy bag, which I also carry and I also use quite a bit during the warmer months of the year. So that's up to you to decide. But I hope this list of gear, this equipment was helpful to you in some shape or form. Hopefully I've been able to give you a little bit of insight on why I choose to carry the stuff that I carry. I will have links to all of this stuff in my Amazon store, and you can shop there. You don't have to shop there, but I truly am grateful for the supporting of this channel On3. I'm really grateful for each and every purchase that you make through that. Not required whatsoever, and I want you to save your money, and hopefully you can try out some of this gear from your buddies and stuff before you go out and buy it. Don't just take my word for it. Trust the word of your friends that potentially use this gear. Use and abuse the gear. Talk to those people, not the guys that just collect the gear. The guys that actually use it. Talk to them and get their insight before you make a purchase, especially the more higher priced items. Anyway, links will be in the comment section, and they will also be in the video description to the Amazon store where you can find all of this stuff. I really do appreciate your support. I appreciate your views. I appreciate you watching each and every one of my videos. I'm very grateful for it. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. And until next time, friends, what's the worst that could happen? Let's just go on 3.